Greetings, my dear aspirationalists, traitors to the country, and those bold enough to use their brains for more than repeating the president's morning press conference talking points. Welcome to this corner of reality where we don't swallow the nonsense they feed us every morning from the National Palace. What's coming is truly terrifying, no doubt. Join me as we break down this blunder of the so-called second phase of the transformation, which actually looks more like the basement of a 1990s gangster movie. Here, the facts are simply obvious. Let's take a look at the foretold case of impunity. Well, what a surprise we got from our scientist, resident of the National Palace, Mrs. Claudia Sheinbaum. It turns out that now, besides being an expert in measuring the temperature of well-being and walking with that stiffness worthy of a Guanajuato mummy, she is also a critic of expert reports. Yes, she made fun of the photos in the file against Ruben Rocha Moya. According to her, those photos are not evidence, they're just little pieces of paper. Of course, under Morena's logic, evidence is only valid if it comes with Lopez Obrador's signature and a stamp that says contribution to the movement. Let's be serious. The joke tells itself, but we're the ones left to face the tragedy. Claudia says that what's important is understanding. What a relief. Here I am like an idiot thinking that international treaties, like the 1978 Extradition Treaty and the 1987 Legal Assistance Treaty, were written to be enforced. But no, according to the 4T worldview, those documents are just suggestions, kind of like the terms and conditions of internet services that nobody reads. Let's discuss the 1978 Extradition Treaty. It's a basic, solid document that establishes that Mexico and the United States are obligated to hand over to each other people accused of serious crimes. Article 11 is a gem. It allows for urgent provisional detention. In other words, if our northern neighbor tells you, hey, that governor has ties to drug traffickers and I want him here, you hold him while the paperwork arrives. But of course, in Morena's world, the political roadblock is the favorite tool. They pull out the sovereignty card and the lack of evidence faster than a pickpocket in the subway, especially when it comes to their boys, because to go after a narco governor from their own ranks, you need a proceeding to strip immunity, the so-called desafuero. It's clear that Morena's representatives protect their own more fiercely than a dog guards its bone. What the welfare maid conveniently decided to leave out in her morning show is the role of Senator Enrique Insunza, among other details. Under the direct orders of Rocha Moya, Insunza was not working to legislate for the people. No, sir, his job was much more operational, giving the drug traffickers the names of opposition candidates who had to be kidnapped or disappeared. Do you doubt it? That is exactly what is written in the United States complaint against Rocha Moya. The order in Sinaloa was clear and terrifying. If Rocha Moya doesn't win, we kill them. Just like that, no sugarcoating. The narcos kidnapped candidates, threatened them, and magically, after Rocha won the elections, they released them. These candidates went to the OAS, filed their complaint, shouted to the world what was happening, and what did the government do? Nothing. And now they insist on asking for proof that Rocha isn't a narco. Amazing, isn't it? He who has nothing to hide has nothing to fear. That's what Rocha and Claudia say in unison. But oh, the irony of fate. Just a few moments later, it turns out that Rocha Moya needs more protection than a protected witness from the Italian mafia. Today, there are more Marines guarding the governor than watching the streets of Culiacan, where people live on edge. 17 armored trucks, a massive deployment of the Navy and the National Guard surrounding the state government headquarters in Sinaloa. What are you afraid of, Mr. Governor? If you are a saint of the transformation, why do you need a personal army? That kind of protection should have gone to a real hero like Carlos Manso, not by a despicable and corrupt person like you. It seems that on the next phase of the transformation, they've decided that the best defense strategy isn't the law, but selective amnesia. The request to have Ruben Rocha Moya and his dream team of Sinaloan officials arrested for extradition has hit the National Palace like a bucket of cold water. The response from our brand new president, the inept Claudia Sheinbaum, has been, to say the least, pathetic. With her trademark solemnity, she insists that the United States request has no evidence. Someone tell the lady that an arrest warrant isn't a thesis exam or an IKEA manual. It doesn't come with step-by-step instructions on how the crime was put together for her to give her approval. It's amazing to see how the government supporters, the same ones who celebrated with confetti and fanfare the testimonies of confessed criminals when it was about Genaro Garcia Luna, now get picky about evidentiary standards. For Garcia Luna, the drug lord's tall tales were irrefutable evidence. Gospel truth, the trial of the century. For Rocha Moya, hold on a second. Where are the 4K videos, the contract signed before a notary, and the written confession? That institutional fuss over the lack of evidence is nothing more than a confession of ignorance about how the U.S. judicial system works. A grand jury in a federal court already considered there was enough evidence. It's not just the whim of a bored prosecutor on Taco Tuesday. It's a substantiated procedural act. But of course, here we prefer to believe that everything is a CIA conspiracy to tarnish Mexican humanism and the always impeccable fourth transformation, right? Since Mayo Zambada decided to take a forced vacation in Texas and the execution of Hector Malasio Cuen turned into the script of a poorly directed suspense movie, the government has tried to seal Pandora's box with packing tape and wounded sovereignty rhetoric. The insistence on CIA agents in Chihuahua is nothing more than noise and political bashing against the opposition. It's the old tactic of throwing up a smokescreen so no one sees that the governor of Sinaloa is in the eye of the hurricane. Mixing an ongoing judicial investigation with unfathomable conspiracy theories only overshadows what should be a clear institutional response. Mexico doesn't lose its sovereignty by responding to an extradition request according to the law. It loses it when it politicizes justice or pretends not to know the rules of the international game. But this is exactly where things get complicated. Claudia Sheinbaum faces her great moral dilemma: loyalty to the clan, protecting the political family inherited from the previous administration by becoming the defense attorney for a group accused of conspiracy to traffic fentanyl and money laundering, or upholding the law, acting as head of state, processing the request coldly and letting the Attorney General's office do its job, if it still remembers how to do its job. So far, the president has chosen solidarity with her group. By saying there's not enough evidence, she isn't protecting sovereignty but sending a devastating message to the world. In this country, there's a political caste that enjoys internal diplomatic immunity, no matter that Washington has them in its sights for direct ties to organized crime. You don't have to be a geopolitical genius to understand that this is happening at the worst possible moment. With the review of the USMCA right in front of us and Donald Trump, whose unpredictability is his only constant, engaging in rhetorical grandstanding is basically diving into an empty pool. If Sheinbaum decides to obstruct the extradition process, she's not only saving Rocha Moya, she's condemning the bilateral relationship and the international credibility of her own government. She is accepting that Mexican humanism not only coexists with, but is actually fed by the structures that are currently public enemy number one in the United States. That's something that definitely doesn't matter to the servile scientist. For her, her party and loyalty to that bastard Lopez Obrador matter more than the whole country. And to top off this tragicomedy, let's talk about the suspicious movements in Palenque. A plane from the Mexican Navy was detected leaving the lands of the Macuspano donkey Lopez Obrador yesterday, April 30th. An express flight just as the United States is starting to tighten the screws on Rocha Moya's extradition. What was that plane doing in Palenque? Was it to bring his favorite chocolates to the Cash King? Or are we perhaps witnessing the preparations for a graceful escape? The doubts are growing. Is the old geezer on the run, or did they bring him a group of Cuban advisors to protect him Maduro style? Because when you see your neighbors or your favorite governors go down, you'd better start worrying about yourself or prepare the military plane. Saving Rocha Moya could be the most expensive mistake of the 6-year term. Turning him in would mean admitting that the movement was infiltrated to the core. Claudia is trapped between loyalty to her predecessor and the viability of her own future, which, by the way, is looking darker and darker. For now, the technical defense from the morning press conference reeks of protecting alleged criminals and a paralyzing fear that the truth will eventually overwhelm the official narrative. But, well, what do I know? I'm just a commentator who watches reality ruin their fairy tale. Dear cultured and knowledgeable audience, I say goodbye for today. In this country, justice is a poorly told joke and complicity with criminals is state policy. Claudia will keep smiling for the cameras. Rocha will keep hiding behind his 17 armored trucks, and the people will keep getting shot while the president of this country keeps defending drug traffickers. Keep enjoying this paradise of impunity wrapped in flags of sovereignty. And remember, if you don't like justice, you can always say there's no evidence. In the fourth transformation, organized crime manages money for elections instead of stealing it. I'll say goodbye for now, but don't get distracted. Keep questioning, keep criticizing, and above all, don't forget that this is a declared war of Mexico against Morena. Together we are the solution. I'll read your comments. See you on Monday. Enjoy your long weekend. You can find the relevant information about PayPal in the comment box. Thanks to you, this channel is still active. It's very important to subscribe, like, and press the bell to receive notifications whenever there's new content. Thank you.